grad transfer, Dmitri Emmanuel, interior offensive lineman, guard center, from Charlotte to Florida State, 6'3", 300, Logan.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I know Florida State fans think Charlotte, Coach Atkins, boom, that already puts you probably in a really good spot if you're trying to seriously go after and target a guy like Dmitri, who I think is like almost as old as me. I feel like has been contributing to Charlotte since 2017. This is definitely a veteran guy coming in. Yeah, James is like, what the hell? We're bringing in 24, 25-year-olds now. But this is a guy that's been playing football for a very long time at the collegiate level. He started off 2 years on reserve and then turned into a full-time starter, played 25 games for the 49ers up there at Charlotte. And he's a guy that is going to most likely come in and have depth there, I think, from what we saw. And this is a guy that actually could, potentially, depends on how fall camp goes and such, could go in and be a starter. He's kind of a hybrid in that way. He can be moved around, but I think he's going to stay in the guard spot. I know Gibbons is really solidified at that left guard spot. So now that right guard, who do you want to have there? I think Coach Atkins, after what he saw in the spring, and Coach Norvell, and what looking back at last season too, with how awful the depth was, you're just kind of throwing in guys on the road that haven't even played the damn position before. And Coach Atkins, admitted that and told us that after one of those games, saying, a few of those guys, they've watched film and they've seen it, but they haven't played at that position in the collegiate level. And when you're on the road having to face an ACC opponent and you're just shuffling around guys that haven't even played in their selected roles coming into Florida State, or, haven't even practiced it, hasn't even gone through scrimmages, it's just terrible. And so I think, Coach Atkins, the whole staff is trying to make sure that they have enough depth, because this spring we thought first off that, this offensive line group might be one of the most, you don't have to worry too much about them kind of position group. And it hasn't been that way for years. And it was kind of like a blind side this spring. I didn't really feel good about that offensive line. I think too, you can't go against Florida State's defensive line this spring and how well they look with Fabian Levitt, Robert Cooper, and two potential starters too behind them with Jared Jackson and Malcolm Ray. They just didn't feel so good, I don't think, about the offensive line. Definitely depth-wise, I think they feel pretty fine. They feel strong about their starters there, but they don't feel good, in my opinion, when one or two of those guys go down. They just don't feel good about it. So they're going after these grad transfer here, and I think they're going to go after big-time guy out of a JUCO, which we'll talk about maybe later. But
Logan, along those lines, you talked about it a little bit when you were talking about Dmitri. But we talked about how Florida State was going to go after certain people after the spring game. We talked about were they going to go after a quarterback, were they going to go after some guys on the defensive side of the ball. Should this concern Florida State fans that you're still going after an offensive line, a group that, despite your constant praise of that group for the last 2 seasons, has been, for lack of a better term, god-awful?
Just about them going after people we should be worried?
Yes, but I guess my question would be, we've talked about it. The offensive line has gotten slightly better. I will admit that it gets slightly better last season. But with that being said, should we be concerned at this point, after what we saw in the spring game, that you're still going after offensive linemen because that group still has not solidified, I think, the way a lot of people expected?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little concerning after the spring. I just think overall, just looking at it, this is just a spring. I know Caden Lyles comes in. You got Bless Harris, but I saw more from Bless Harris than definitely Caden Lyles. A lot of people think immediately that Caden Lyles is coming in to start right away, and Maurice Smith is just going to be pushed over, and he's going to have a year to get bigger, yada, yada, yada. But I don't see that happening. I know James went to a lot of these practices during the spring too, but I don't know if Caden Lyles could have gone through a whole 4 quarters from what we saw in the spring. I don't know if it's just adjustment from going to Wisconsin to down here in Florida, but I think there's a lot of conditioning to do there. And still, getting snaps, there was a lot of problems there with snapping the ball for Lyles this spring. And I know that's just a little thing there, but damn, I mean, if you're going to be playing center there, that's something that has got to be, that's just something that you do every single day. And it should be easy, but it was a consistent, bad snap, bad snap, bad snap. And then you add on, the conditioning. You know, I think Maurice Smith, that's his spot to lose. And then Bless Harris, you know, he had his ups and his downs. And this is what you do. You go through a spring, you learn what maybe wasn't working, what you liked. And I don't think the staff really liked what they saw in their depth with the offensive line. And this is why they're going to continue after landing this grad transfer, Dmitri Emmanuel, to go after more targets on the offensive line. Either if it's transfer, grad transfer, JUCO, they're going, even though they loaded up big time. They loaded up big time in their freshman offensive line class, and one of the best in the country coming in talent-wise. And that's fine, but you don't have experience there on the college level, and that's what they want. And this is exactly what they're going after. You're bringing in a guy that is old cat coming in, Dmitri, and then you're looking at a JUCO offensive tackle, Makai Lee, who just recently is most likely going to get an offer, plans on visiting Florida State soon, and it's between him and another SEC school, Missouri. 6'6", 315. You know, this is a true tackle guy coming in that Florida State desperately needs. You can kind of get a feeling here. Spring didn't like what they saw. It was plain and simple.
I mean, I think you also got to look at it that offensive line recruiting has been abysmal since about 2013. You haven't. It's not even just so much the misses as much as you haven't really done the depth. One of my first articles that I ever wrote when I got into media was about what Texas A&M and why Jimbo was going into a better situation, and then what is Alabama, what is Georgia, what do the top schools at the time have in common that Florida State doesn't, and it's recruiting 4 to 5 offensive linemen every year, no matter what. They're bringing in talent, the depth, and those are the things that kind of help you be able. You can either push guys out, or the cream's going to rise to the top. You can't have depth if you don't recruit it. And then one of the problems that Florida State's really had in the last few years is that they keep recruiting projects, and eventually you got to make one of these projects develop. Lloyd Willis is one of those projects that a lot of people were high on. That I hope that they're right and I'm wrong and my eyes are wrong, because what I saw was terrifying. And now Robert Scott looked better, but you need more help and more depth. And I think Lyles, his body type actually looks like he belongs, but I think Maurice Smith, right?
Yep.
Maurice Green's the Mr. Fastest man in the world. He's definitely not that body type, but he had an eating issue, and they hopefully got that corrected, so he's able to get the mass that's necessary to be able to play offensive line on a Power 5 level. But then you bring in, like you talked about, you bring in this guy Dmitri, you possibly bring in another JUCO guy, and at worst, these guys provide valuable depth. But if you what's the point of having 5 leftover scholarships right now and not using them? It's not like it's not rollover minutes. You don't get 5 extra ones. You don't get 90 next year if you don't use them. So if you feel like you can attack a need and be able to create more competition, God bless. Because the reality is these freshmen that are coming in are going to be grossly unprepared because they missed the entire spring. That's what's your boy from Miami name whose dad played here? The offensive tackle, but I think we're gonna play him at guard.
Oh, Armello.
Yeah, Armello's not gonna be ready. The other high 4-star kid, if he gets his grades, not even Woody, but Sate. Now we saw the one guy who came in who was fat from Georgia, complete body transformation, by the way, too. I think he's number 69. Complete body transformation, what it looks like. Kanaya. You need that's why Kanaya is an example of why you need early spring enrollees for your guys. But I understand St. Thomas Aquinas doesn't let kids early enroll, which I think is stupid now considering how much talent they put out. But those are the things I don't mind it. Keep getting better where you can get. You missed on. We wouldn't be having this argument if we got Mims. So like a few weeks ago, we were like, yeah, bring in Mims. We need the help. Same concept.